In a world shaped by power, conflict, hidden truths, and stories that matter, we go beyond the headlines, beyond the surface, and deep into the lines that shape our world. Welcome to DeepLine Media, where history, geopolitics, and untold stories come to life. And today, we travel to one of Asia's most important rivers, where a growing struggle over water could shape the future of millions. Imagine a river so powerful that the fate of 70 million people depends on it. A river that feeds nations, powers economies, and keeps entire civilizations alive. But now, the same river is becoming a source of tension, political rivalry, and a growing fear of conflict. Because in Asia, a silent war is beginning, not over oil, not over land, but over water. This is the story of the Mekong River and why it may become Asia's next great conflict zone. Flowing nearly 5,000 kilometers across Asia, the Mekong is one of the world's great rivers. It begins high in the Tibetan Plateau, then cuts through mountains and valleys, passing through China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and finally reaching Vietnam, where it spreads into the fertile Mekong Delta before meeting the sea. For millions of people, the Mekong is not just a river, it is life itself. Its water irrigate rice fields, feed fisheries, provide drinking water, support transportation, and generate electricity. In Cambodia, the Mekong helps sustain one of the largest inland fisheries on earth. In Vietnam, the Mekong Delta produces a massive share of the country's rice supply. For farmers, fishermen, and entire communities, the river is survival. It has connected nations for centuries, fed civilizations, and shaped economies. But rivers that cross borders often create a dangerous question: who controls the water? And that question is becoming increasingly dangerous. The Mekong starts upstream in China, where it is known as the Linking River, and here China holds something incredibly powerful: control over the river's source. Over the past 2 decades, massive dams have been built along the upper Mekong, walls of concrete designed to generate electricity, store water, and regulate river flow. For China, these dams represent energy security, economic growth, and strategic infrastructure. But for countries downstream, they represent uncertainty, because whoever controls the upstream flow can influence what happens downstream. During drought years, lower Mekong countries have raised concerns over changing water levels. Farmers see shrinking water supplies, fishing communities report declining catch, and governments worry about how dependent they are on decisions made for upstream. China says its dams help regulate flooding, improve development, and support cooperation. Critics argue something different. They say these dams create strategic leverage because in geopolitics, control over essential resources means power, and power changes everything. But this conflict is not fought with soldiers, at least not yet. It's fought with water levels, sediment loss, fish migration disruption, and collapsing livelihoods. Dams do more than hold water. They trap sediment, the rich natural material that normally flows downstream. That sediment is essential. It fertilizes farmland, builds riverbanks, and helps sustain the Mekong Delta. Without it, the land begins to weaken, salt water pushes inland, crop production suffers, and communities become vulnerable. Then there is the fish. The Mekong is one of the most biodiverse rivers on Earth. Many species migrate seasonally, following ancient patterns older than modern borders. But dams interrupt these routes. Fish population decline, food security suffers, and poor communities pay the highest price. And then comes climate change, longer droughts, unpredictable rainfall, extreme heat, rising sea levels, all placing even more pressure on an already fragile river system. The Mekong is not facing just one crisis, it's facing many, all at once. And this is where the story becomes bigger than the river itself, because the Mekong is now a geopolitical battlefield. China's upstream position gives it enormous influence. Laos has embraced dam construction, hoping to become the battery of Southeast Asia. Thailand depends on energy and water. Cambodia relies heavily on fisheries. Vietnam fears the destruction of its delta. Each country has different priorities, different needs, different risks, and that creates tension. Regional organizations have tried cooperation, agreements have been signed, meetings have been held, but cooperation becomes fragile. When national interests collide, water diplomacy is difficult, and history shows something dangerous. When essential resources become scarce, competition grows, trust weakens, and conflict becomes more likely. Not always with tanks and missiles, but through political pressure, economic leverage, migration, food insecurity, regional instability, and rising mistrust. This is how modern conflict begins, quietly, slowly, and often before the world notices. Experts do not believe the Mekong will suddenly erupt into war tomorrow. But that does not mean there is no danger, because modern conflicts rarely begin overnight. They begin with shortage, with economic stress, with governments blaming one another, with food insecurity, with people forced to move. Water is power, and in a warming world, fresh water may become one of the most strategic resources on Earth. The Mekong is a warning, a preview of what happens when climate stress, population growth, energy demand, and geopolitics collide. And Asia is now the only place watching, because what happens here could become a blueprint for future water conflicts around the world. For centuries, the Mekong connected nations, fed families, and sustained life, but today it is becoming something else. A river of tension, a river of politics, a river where control over water could shape the future of an entire region. And in the 21st century, the next great conflict may not be fought for land or oil, but for something even more essential: water. The Mekong is more than a river. It is a warning of what happens when survival, power, and geopolitics collide. And as the world faces a future of rising scarcity, one question remains: who controls the water, controls the future. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more deep stories on geopolitics, history, conflict, and world affairs, make sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to DeepLine Media for more documentaries that go beyond the headlines, because the deeper story changes everything. As always, thank you for being with us.